The minor cards, the aces, relate to the primordial elements found in Kether and the very root of the Tetragrammaton, or the name of God. As Crowley stated, the point to remember is that, both in their appearance and in their meaning, the aces are not the elements themselves but the seeds of those elements. When the tree of life is projected into a solid sphere, they are placed at the North Pole, above the princesses, which are called the thrones of the aces. The Golden Dawn taught that the aces govern the revolution of the universe and act as a link between Yetzirah, the formative world, and our material plane. Casual readers of the original Golden Dawn documents on tarot may be confused by the order in which the cards, numbered 2 through 10, are presented. Unlike other systems, which describe these cards in a simple numerical sequence, the Golden Dawn described them in terms of the decans of the zodiac. This was an astrological scheme developed by Ptolemy in ancient Egypt. The zodiac, a flat disk 360 degrees, is divided into 36 sections degrees each. Thus, each of the 12 houses of the zodiac has 3 decans, and each decan is a minor card of the tarot. These same divisions are days of the year, so that each individual may be assigned one of the minor cards on the basis of birth data. The primary symbolism of the zodiac is of houses and planets. The houses are simply 30 degrees divisions of the zodiac, each of which has one of the 12 signs naturally attached to it. Aries is the first house, Taurus the second house, Gemini the third, etc. So, each sign has 3 decans, each ruled by a different planet. The activity of a planet in a sign is so specific as to be illustrated as a tarot card. Another confusing element is that the decans begin, not with the first sign, Aries, but with Leo. The first degree of Leo related to the star Regulus, sometimes called Cor Leonis, the royal king star of the heart of the lion. The Golden Dawn taught that the commencement of the zodiac at 0 degrees Aries was arbitrary and returned to the very ancient system where the zodiac begins at 0 degrees Leo. Thus, the first of the decans is the 5 of Wands, a dynamic fiery card. Moreover, the system of only 7 planets, referred to as the Old Planets, was developed before the discovery of Neptune, Uranus and Pluto, and considered the Moon, itself, a planet. This latter idea may be dismissed as representing the ignorance of ancient science. But in terms of the profound and subtle influence exerted by the Moon on our Earth, it is an appropriate description. Planets are attributed to the decans in a sequence repeated 5 times. 1. Mars, 2. The Sun, 3. Venus, 4. Mercury, 5. The Moon, 6. Saturn, 7. Jupiter. Yet there is one difficulty. To quote from the book T. There being only 36 decanates and only 7 planets, it follows that one of the latter must rule over one more decanate than the others. This is the planet Mars, which is allotted the last decan of Pisces and first of Aries, because the long cold of the winter requires a great energy to overcome it and initiate spring. The illustration above the minor cards as they relate to these astrological configurations. The minor cards carry 2 interchangeable sets of symbolism. They represent planets in the signs of the zodiac. They also represent aspects of individual Sephiroth in the 4 worlds. To each minor card and decan is attributed a pair of angels, one of whom rules the day and the other the night. So each card represents a duality. Here again we return to the idea that the cards are rooted in Yetzirah, the world of angels, as opposed to the archangels of Brya or the gods of Atziluth. The cards are astral images, illustrating the world of matter below, and symbolically reflecting the worlds of mind and spirit above. For example, the 2 of Wands relates to Chakma in Atziluth, as does the King of Wands. But neither card is precisely the same as the Chakma in Atziluth, upon which one calls with the god name Jah. The 2 off-wands may be said to represent the effect in Yetzirah of the power of Chakma in Atziluth, as the King of Wands personifies the action of fire in Yetzirah. Yetzirah is the formative world through which higher principles pass down into our lives. It is a world of images reflected from above and below, which explains why the tarot works so well for divination. No doubt many will be completely lost at this point. But the Qabalah involves a necessarily complex shuffling of words. The more deeply one goes into the definitions, sub-definitions, super-definitions, pluperfect and platitudinal definitions, the more one is touching on areas where no words can apply. The very effort to find meaning in this maze of ideas is important because it is an expression of commitment. The greatest protection of the mysteries today, the methods of which have been published openly, is that the early intellectual and meditational exercises are inordinately boring. Few will ever be so serious about the Qabalah as to wade devotedly through its sea of convoluted words. Most will give up quickly. A point thrown here is a gauntlet for those who enjoy real challenges. Having said this, a further complication will be added, which is the fact that each of the 40 Sephiroth of the 4 worlds contains a complete tree of life of its own, so that there are actually 400 Sephiroth in all. Finally, relative to the minor cards, it should be understood that the two angels of each numbered card are specific to that card and the administration of its specific energies. If one were to scry with one of these cards, which is perfectly legitimate, one would first invoke the protection and guidance of the god and archangel of the related Sephira, then the angels. The court cards. McGregor Mathers described the court cards as being not on the Sephiroth, but beside them. Here he apparently intended to suggest that these cards are not purely integral to the Sephiroth, but are extensions of their qualities. The court cards represent the elemental powers of the Tetragrammaton in the four worlds. They personify the attributes of the specific elements and, as such, generally represent real people when they appear in a divination. Where this is not the case, they mean an event or situation having a certain personality. It may also be said that the court cards represent decision, on our own part or on the part of others. It is the decision of individuals, or the result of situations brought about by individual decision, which bring into effect the blind forces represented by the cards of the tarot numbered 2 through 10. So that when a court card comes up in a divination, it suggests a human controlling factor. The trumps usually represent karmic forces also manipulative of the numbered minor cards. To reiterate, in divination the court cards are the choices of men, the trumps are the choices of the gods, although at a more complex level, these are our own choices, too, and the small cards are the forces brought into play. Of course, any card of the deck may be a clear reference to an individual. Like the minor cards, the court cards may also be referred to the zodiac. The kings, queens and princes stand behind the deacons, while the princesses are said to link together the signs. The aces through tens and the court cards may be placed on a composite diagram, but this scheme is a simplistic attempt to show relationships which are actually three-dimensional and refer to the earth and its two magnetic poles. The complete system of attribution of the tarot to the tree of life in a solid sphere is to be found in Rigardi's Golden Dawn. In key there is the divine white brilliance, the scintillation and coruscation of the divine glory, that light which lighteth the universe, that light which surpasseth the glory of the sun, and beside which the light of mortals is but darkness, and concerning which it is not fitting that we should speak more fully. And the sphere of its operation is called Rashath ha-Gilgalim, the beginning of whirling, the primum mobile first mover, which bestoweth the gift of life in all things and filleth the whole universe. And Ehia is the name of the divine essence in Kether, and its archangel is the prince of countenances, Metatron, he who bringeth forth others before the face of God. And the name of its order of angels is called Sheath HaKadosh, the holy living creatures, which are also called the order of seraphim. All of the Sephiroth must be approached intellectually before some intuition about their natures begins to develop. One begins with a study of the symbols attached to each Sephira. Such symbols transcend language. Moreover, one symbol may suggest something about another symbol, thus creating a general picture of the energy in question. It is impossible to know Kether, as it is said that man cannot look upon the face of God and live. Yet we can establish some principles about Kether through its symbols, such as the point. It may be said that Kether is the point, and that is true. But the point is not Kether, it is merely an idea, a focus of reference for our thoughts about Kether. The interrelationship of symbols provides the best instruction, for each symbol describes a specific aspect of a Sephira. In Kether, these are the crown, the point and the swastika. This latter is one of the oldest symbols of the ultimate Godhead, unfortunately attached to the positive evil of Nazism in an age past. The first symbol of Kether is the crown. Our anthropomorphic perspective may lead us to the idea that the directing force is within our heads, but the Qabalah places that force above. The distinction is a significant one, indicating that the holy guiding spirit is a crowning glory to which we may aspire, and an energy to which the mental processes of our brain are subordinate. The crown, in the microcosm, is our essential spirit. In the macrocosm it rests above the head of Adam Kadmon, the archetypal man of the Zohar who symbolizes the entire manifest universe. Kether is the crown above creation, but it is also that from which all creation springs. For this reason, another of its prime symbols is the point. The point is complete unto itself, without dimensions or external definition. It represents total unity. It is the seed from which the universe grows. Ultimately, all is Kether, and each of the Sephiroth emanating successively from Kether are crystallizations of the latent aspects of the One. The journey of manifestation begins and ends with Kether. It is the Kether of Atziluth to which we aspire and into which the manifest universe will eventually withdraw. We begin the process of accelerating our own spiritual development or return by the invocation of our own Kether. This Kether unconsciously guides and directs us. The very act of calling attention to the light above our heads brings about a subtle activity on the inner planes. It is a conscious affirmation of the personality and manifestation of its mutability, and that the source of all true life is above. As the very universe begins and ends with Keter, so all work of spiritual development, whether meditative or ritualistic, must begin with an invocation of the highest. The God name in Keter is Ehia, meaning I will be, a name which has been likened in its sound and meaning to breath. To the point is attributed the number 1 which, mathematically, has the potential for all other numbers, by simple addition. If we take the number 1 and place another number 1 beside it, we have 2. If we take a third 1, we have 3 ones, that is, 3. This idea may appear so obvious as to be inane, until we begin to meditate on the concept of simple numbers and simple geometry. What do we know, for example, that could be considered pure 1, which is totally indivisible? Numbers are the most pure form of simple, and are of great importance in the Kabbalistic scheme of things. No student who has pursued Ouspensky's tertium organommer through its profound discussion of dimensions would dispute that. While Keter is symbolized by the point and the number 1, it is not static. In Asaya, the material world, it is also the first swirling of manifestation. So a third descriptive idea is attached. That is the swastika representing vital, swirling motion around the point. It is self-contained, but in motion. The swastika has 4 arms, representing the 4 latent aspects of the tetragrammaton, the primordial elements. It is not Trinitarian. These are the energies which, unified in Keter, are finally differentiated into the 4 base elements of Malkuth, called the bride of Microprosopis. Malkuth is Keter on the lowest R, and defines the principle of as above, so below. The swastika is the perfect symbol for the primordial elements, because if the arms are imagined in motion, like the blades of a fan, each is indistinguishable from the other. As the elements are represented in Malkuth, on the tree of life, they are sharply defined. As above, so below is a principle which states, in essence, that Malkuth, the densest development of the universe, is equally holy as the source. Fundamentalists, finding the physical world evil, per se, are misguided extremists. This question of evil is best approached in dealing with Keter, because this is the sole area of the tree of life where no evil exists. It is the holy of holies, having no opposing energies within it. Evil is unbalanced force. It is a byproduct of evolution, resulting from a stage of temporary imbalance in one sephira, prior to the mitigating emergence of another. That is the Kabbalistic theory. At each point of evolution is left an extreme of a specific energy. Evil is an extreme. It attempts to pull to one side, making balance impossible. Unity is the ultimate good, and unity is the result of the balance of 2 opposites. For example, Jabura is dynamic strength, and its opposite, chest, is mercy or love. The extreme of Jabura is hideous cruelty. The extreme of chest is the worst kind of weakness, manifesting as bigotry and hypocrisy. Diane Fortune makes the point that there are 2 kinds of evil, positive and negative. Negative evil is not so much a matter of choice as unbalanced temperament. But positive evil involves willfully espousing an unbalanced force for some sort of self-gain. Each sephira has its unbalanced aspect and a system of named demons, as it has its god names and angelic forms, known as the Qliphoth. These are extremes which are also found in each individual, in varying degrees, and which the Qabalah serves as a method of first defining and then bringing under control. It is for this reason that a system such as that of a Brahmaland invokes both the good and evil forces. One is viewed as no better than the other, since they are both an integral part of all. There is no value judgment, only the desire to understand and bring under the control of balance. This is the meaning of the warring families of the Bhagavad Gita. They are the component parts of the personality which is, literally, at war with itself, until the battle is resolved through the intermediary of the higher self, Krishna in this work, and peace restored. The ultimate peace and unity of Keter is represented by an anthropomorphic symbol known as a magical image. Such an image is given for each of the Sephiroth and has been built up over the centuries by meditative work on the inner planes. These images are, along with the applicable symbols, points of contact with the energies of the Sephiroth. In the case of Keter, the image is that of an ancient bearded king seen in profile. This is a crowned and white bearded head, seen from the right side, its left being unknown to us, as it borders on the unmanifest. As the aces are attributed to Keter, they represent the most pure forms of energy, subject to elaboration as the Sephiroth, symbolized by the other numbered cards of the tarot, consecutively emerge to form a complete world. Each is unique and distinct in the degree of its density and in its specific type of energy. Thus, when any ace appears in a divination, it stands for great power. Finally, it must be reiterated that while the Keter, which is the source of all, is a quality which cannot be known to us, it is a quality which we can symbolize to some extent. It is intriguing to consider the idea of eternity, an effort which tends to underscore the very frailty of the system of definitions within which we necessarily function. We may be able to deal with the idea that the division between matter and spirit is artificial, or even a concept of intelligence which is totally formless, but our concept of time falls hard. We suppose that if God is not finite, he must be infinite. And yet, we are told that none of our human concepts can begin to apply to Keter, and infinite is a human concept. There is a large degree of faith required here, and an open mind which asks questions fearlessly until answers emerge. The aces first in order of appearance are the four aces, representing the force of the spirit acting in and binding together the four scales of each element and answering to the dominion of the letters of the name in the Keter of each. They represent the radical or root force. The four aces are said to be placed on the north pole of the universe, wherein they revolve, governing its revolution and ruling as the connecting link between Yetzirah and the material plane of the universe. The Ace of Wands, root of the powers of fire. This card represents the primary outpouring energy of the universe. It is the Keter of Atzilith, the influence of Keter on the level of pure spirit. In the Golden Dawn card, an angelic hand holds what is basically an inverted root of 3 sections, possibly influenced by the Tree of Life diagram published by Flood. The 10 root sections are painted with bands in the colors of the 10 Sephiroth and the 4 worlds. The sigils on the 3 parts are drawn from the Rose Cross lamens, using the letters Esh, fire, Mame, water and Ruach, air. The 22 yods are the paths of life. The Marseille deck is probably the source of these yods, although there the number seems arbitrary. The weight card shows the club as living and bearing leaves, a reference which is intentionally phallic. Crowley's ace abstracts the flaming yods into the form of the entire tree of life, thus continuing the Golden Dawn symbolism of the Ace of Wands as the source of all. Here it may also be observed that the entire tree is a glyph of the power of fire, when manifestation is symbolized as the tetragrammaton, permeated by Yod and Shin, which are to some extent used interchangeably. The Ace of Cups, root of the powers of water. The Ace of Cups is Keter in Braya, the influence of Keter on the mental level. This is an all-encompassing maternal force, symbolized by water, which in the Golden Dawn and Weight cards pours dynamically from the cup but becomes calm and stable beneath. The Golden Dawn represents the unfolding of divine consciousness, with the lotus-colored red to suggest that the origin of this consciousness is in fire. Weight, on the other hand, shows the cup as the perfection and formalization of the tetragrammaton evolving toward matter. The 26 drops of water coming from the cup means the tetragrammaton, a number derived by gematria, as we will later demonstrate. The dove here is a symbol of Venus as the Great Mother, beneath which is the circle and equal-armed cross of the earth which she produces. This symbol was incidentally adopted by Diane Fortune to represent her society of the inner light. Crowley's version of the card emphasizes the wave action characteristic of physical water, but here meaning the activity which encloses and directs pure consciousness. The cup emerges from the lotus itself. The Marseille ace is the most basic of the 3 versions and appears to be nothing more than a simple chalice. Yet the suggestion of Gothic architecture tells us that what is intended is the Church as Holy Mother. In the 14th century, the Virgin Mary was often referred to as the Church itself, the very building which enclosed the faithful. That symbolism is completely consistent with the meaning of the Ace of Cups. The Ace of Swords, root of the powers of air. The card is Keter in Yetzirah, the influence of Keter in the astral world, the world of fleeting forms. This is a potent card which can be either extremely good or extremely evil. It represents force which is invoked, rather than the natural force of the Ace of Wands. This is a force called upon. When the Keter energies are seen on the astral level, they are both dynamic and erratic, having the potential to be applied at will to different situations. Thus, this is described as the sword of good or evil, of whirling force and strength through trouble. It is the affirmation of justice upholding divine authority, and it may become the sword of wrath, punishment and affliction. The style for most versions of this card relates to the Marseille version, showing the sword of air, passing through the crown of Keter. Dual possibilities for action are implied in the palm of suffering and the olive branch of peace. The 6 boss above the Golden Dawn crown mean Tifereth, the Ruach, air, center of the Tree of Life. The Pentacles, root of the powers of earth. This ace represents Keter in Asaya, the influence of Keter in the world of matter. It is a card of materiality which may, like the Ace of Swords, be either good or evil. It is not necessarily a card of wealth and should be compared with the 10 of Pentacles. The Marseille card is extremely simple and relates to the ancient suit of coins, money being considered the essence of material things. Waite's version also features a coin, but this is really a pentacle, magical symbol of earth, held above a flowing garden of pure lilies. The hand floats in the air, suggesting that it is that which brings about the fruition of matter, rather than being matter itself. In the Golden Dawn card, an angelic hand holds a rose tree surmounted by a pentacle of 5 concentric circles. The outermost circles are in the colors of malachite, citrine, olive, russet and black. These are the 4 base elements, shown to be in perfect balance by the red equal-armed cross. The 12 white rays are the forces of the zodiac, expressed through the elements of earth. The 4 roses also represent the elements, but the addition of 2 buds implies the very fertility of these elements in their subtle earthly balance. The winged red cross refers to the primordial elements of Kether. It is winged to show that the elements pass through the state of spiritual air before manifesting into matter. Crowley's card apparently represents the wings of the 4 archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael and Uriel, whose powers serve to balance one another and create stability. At the center is Crowley's personal phallus symbol and the number of the beast of Revelation, 666, with which he identified. In the wheel are Greek words meaning to the mark of the beast, another indicator that Crowley chose this particular card as his own. In Chakma is a cloud-like grey which containeth various colors and is mixed with them, like a transparent pearl, hued mist, yet radiating withal, as if behind it there was a brilliant glory. And the sphere of its influence is in Masleth, the starry heaven, wherein it disposeth the forms of things. And Yah is the divine ideal wisdom, and its archangel is Ratziel, the prince of princes of the knowledge of hidden and concealed things, and the name of its order of angels is Ophanium. The wheels are the whirling forces, which are also called the order of cherubim. Many of our present-day notions of sexuality are still rooted in the Victorian era, when sex was considered almost unnatural. It was, at best, not to be discussed in polite company. Today we are coming, increasingly, to understand that what has been described as the mystery of sex is aptly termed, and that the ability to manipulate the sexual currents in one's own body was among the greatest secrets of the ancient magicians. It is no coincidence that the ecstasies of visionaries such as Saint Teresa or Saint John of the Cross described in words that seem explicitly sexual and orgasmic. Sexual repression or discomfort with one's own sexuality, and here we are neither discussing nor advocating any particular pattern of behavior, is a serious impediment to any understanding of the inner worlds. The male generative organ, the phallus or lingam, is the key symbol of Chakma and the first differentiation of the one. It is the primary quality of maleness at the most abstract level and representative of the supernal father emanating from the Godhead. From Chakma emerges Binah, the supernal mother. Students of scripture will quickly note the parallels here with the story of Adam and Eve as described in the book of Genesis. God created first man by molding him from dust and breathing his own breath into his creation. Eve, the first woman, was created from the rib of the first man. The uniting of male and female gave rise to the race of men after they were driven from the Garden of Eden. One can, symbolically, take the Garden of Eden to be the supernal triangle itself. The male and female energies, balanced against each other, evolve in increasing density as they develop toward the lowest aspects of the tree of life, far from the supernal heights. The first book of the Bible has been described as an extremely complex Kabbalistic cryptogram, where every letter of every Hebrew word, as well as its numerical value, has a specific and hidden meaning. But interpretations of this sort are more the appropriate concern of the theologian. Few students possess the language and research skills to deal with the Qabalah in this way. Nor is this a practical necessity, since understanding the Qabalah, though the study begins with the intellect, is ultimately a spiritual process. As we focus our intellectual attention on the signs and symbols of the tree of life, we find that we are developing an intangible appreciation of the energies which are described. And, as we have indicated, number is among the most important of the symbols with which we have to be concerned. In the case of Chakma, that number is 2. The number 2 symbolizes the balance of opposites underlying all of material existence. Thus does perfect harmony describe the Chakma of Atziluth, the 2 of Wands. Chakma is the impetus for all manifestation, as opposed to Kether, from which that impetus derives and which is the root. In the mundane chakra, it is the sphere of the zodiac, as Binah is the planet Saturn. While Kether is ultimately androgynous, Chakma is the idea of maleness, and Binah is the idea of femaleness. We use the term idea here since at the exalted realm of the supernal triangle, there can be no sexuality as we understand it in our sphere of sensation. Maleness is described as a vital outpouring energy, which is organized, that is, limited or formalized, by the qualities of femaleness. In the Qabalah, these principles are referred to the Yod, male, and the He, female. Their offspring is the vow of the divine name, attributed to the 6 lower Sephiroth to which Tifereth is central. There are so many interchangeable symbols in the Qabalah that the system may appear to be more complicated than it actually is. But this concept of vital outpouring energy which, in intercourse with an organizing force, produces something else, is essential. For example, the Hebrew letter He applies to Binah, but as the oldest of the planets is also applied, another suggestion is involved. For Saturn devours its children. The meaning here is twofold. First, that death is implicit in birth, second, and at a deeper level, that the universe itself, the pattern of interwoven energies resulting from the balance of Chakma and Binah, will eventually withdraw inwards along the same course through which it evolved. The mysteries of the number 2 must be viewed as the interaction between opposites, found throughout the tree of life, and originated in the opposition of Chakma and Binah. This involves fluid polarities, such as anabolism and catabolism, building up and tearing down, waxing and waning, life and death, etc. However, these opposites are not static. They are not pure and immobile positive against pure and immobile negative, held opposite one another in a sort of celestial checkmate. There is a constant growth and movement. As change occurs in the energy of one sephira, there is a natural balancing response in its opposite, an effect which is seen dramatically as the Sephiroth are applied to aspects of the microcosm. There is a continual interchange which might be likened to the breathing in and out suggested by the divine name of Kether, Ehia, which sets the pattern for all beneath it. The key to all systems, and to the universal pattern, is Chakma, which may be considered the only reality as opposed to Kether, which is not. One can conceptualize the universe as non-being, Kether, and being, Chakma. It is rather like an electrical switch which is turned off in Kether and turned on in Chakma. The power is potential in Kether, but it does not begin to function until the switch is turned on. To understand how this works, let us imagine ourselves switched on in Chakma, in a state of deep meditation, with the reality of our current existence welling up in our minds. We dream ourselves, yet that which is dreamed is unaware of the dreamer. Here is what is meant by the Chinese story of a man who dreams he is a butterfly, but on waking wonders if he is actually a butterfly dreaming that he is a man. That we meditate ourselves, like a dream inside out, is the ultimate fact of our earthly existence. The inner eye dreams what we perceive ourselves to be in life. We, as such, do not exist, an idea which may be very frightening to some and exhilarating to others. Now this dream of life of ours has some very specific dimensions, or whatever they may be called. Such dimensions are usually described in spatial terms because that is our best frame of reference. The Qabalah describes an evolution downwards from Chakma and various levels of the self-dream which are the symbolic Sephiroth. Other systems explain these levels of self as sheaths developing outward from the I, monad, supreme spiritual self, etc., which does the meditating. Some of the most complex discussions of these sheaths are given by Alice Bailey. Another who attempts an explanation is Diane Fortune, author of the Cosmic Doctrine. Such systems, however, appear so obtuse as to be unapproachable by all but a very few. Yet when the universal patterns are glibly called so simple that they could be explained to a child, 2 ideas are intended. First, what we have described as dreaming our own existences. And second, that we are all, collectively, what is known as God, but are not aware of it. The loss of our sense of oneness with the divine, however this may have happened, is the symbolic fall, again, a spatial reference to going downwards. These 2 concepts are, at first, understood intellectually, the vision of the machinery of the universe of Yesod. Then the intellectual work turns into a profound inner understanding. We surpass thought and begin to function consciously with our inner dream maker. Here it may be appreciated that when the dreamer and the dreamed, as we know ourselves, begin to cooperate, we acquire a control over what happens to our lives that is truly extraordinary. We can have anything we want anything. But what happens is that we want nothing at all, because we have learned what matters and what does not. The 2s, the 4 deuces symbolize the powers of the king and queen. First uniting and initiating the force, but before the prince and princess are thoroughly brought into action. Therefore do they generally imply the initiation and fecundation of a thing. 2 of Wands, Lord of Dominion, Mars in Aries. Angels of the Deacon. Vehul and Denael. Chakma in Atziluth, the influence of Chakma in the world of pure spirit. In the Atziluthic realm, the fiery male force is on its own ground, so to speak, and is in a completely harmonious state. The fiery planet Mars rules the fiery sign Aries, a tremendous force which Crowley symbolizes with two crossed dorjes, Tibetan symbol of the thunderbolt. Here we understand that the energies are balanced, making this powerful card one of stable strength and dominion. To the crossed wand pattern, established by the Marseille deck, the Golden Dawn added an angelic hand. The original Golden Dawn cards included the astrological signs found on the Crowley cards, here Mars and Aries, the decision having been made to eliminate them for publication. Waite's card shows a man surveying his kingdom, a mnemonic device intended to benefit those who are using the cards primarily for divination, showing only one aspect of the card's meaning, dominion. Two of Cups, Lord of Love, Venus in Cancer. Angels of the Deacon. Ael and Shibuya. This is Chakma and Braya, the influence of Chakma in the mental world. Cancer is a watery sign, so cups apply. This is a card of feeling and romance, particularly in material things, which has the potential for energy misspent. Fish, generally, refer to the goddess Venus, the dolphin relating more specifically to Neptune and the sun god Apollo. On the Golden Dawn card the solar, male, symbolism is implicit in the gold color of one dolphin, while the silver in the other is lunar, female. They work together to bring light to our world, which is also the nature of the sign Cancer, and reinforces the meaning of the card as a harmony of male and female. The water springs from a pure source, the upper lotus, and pours down into the cups, ultimately reaching our material earth. The idea is that water can only flow through the energy provided by the Chakma fire. It is a joyous and loving partnership. The Crowley card is based entirely on that of the Golden Dawn. And in the Marseille card we find the apparent design roots of both. In his exoteric version, Waite emphasizes the divinatory meaning of love, marriage and partnership. Two of Swords, Lord of Peace restored, Moon in Libra. Angels of the Deacon. Yezalel and Mebahal. This is Chakma and Yutsira, the influence of Chakma in the astral world. Swords are generally negative and destructive, but the balancing effect of Chakma makes this a positive card. Swords, which might otherwise be clashing, hold together a flower in both the Golden Dawn and Crowley cards. The Golden Dawn uses the Venusian red rose of peace, Crowley chose a five-petaled lotus. Balance is affirmed by the cross of light behind which, on Crowley's card, implies that this is the balance of active energies. The divinatory meaning is suggested by the position of the moon in Libra. The moon is a very changeable and erratic planet which assumes some stability in Libra. The effect is one of subtlety, grace and compromise. So in divination, this card means a made up and arranged, the restoration of peace. Waite's card implies all of this, but also indicates the underlying tension which Crowley shows in his swirling forms behind the swords. The truce here may be somewhat tenuous. Two of Pentacles, Lord of Harmonious Change, Jupiter in Capricorn. Angels of the Deacon. Lekabal and Veshariah. This is Chakma and Asaya, the influence of Chakma in the material world. Jupiter, a very benevolent planet in traditional astrology, is not well placed in the sign of Capricorn, meaning that its good influence can only be exerted as an organizer. It assures the harmony of an interaction of dualities inherent in the Chakma energy as it applies to Earth. What was a perfectly unified energy in Atsalith is now a completely expressed duality, energies in alternation. Once more it appears that the Marseille card is the pattern for the three modern cards, the later versions having simply closed the S shape into a perfect symbol of infinity. The snake with its tail in its mouth, the Ouroboros, is a very ancient symbol of wisdom, meaning of the Hebrew word chakma. But this serpent is in the form of a figure 8, the same infinity sign found over the head of the magician. In divination it means the harmony of change. But in esoteric studies, it suggests the underlying patterns of alternation in all matter and the profound relationship between opposites.